All right. We're in Genesis chapter 39, continuing the story of Joseph. Julia and Fred, do you mind starting us off? We're going to do 3 verses each. It's kind of a shorter chapter, so.
3 each?
Yes.
Okay.
When Joseph was taken to Egypt by the Ishmaelite traders, he was purchased by Potiphar, an Egyptian officer. Potiphar was a captain of the guard for Pharaoh, the king of Egypt. The Lord was with Joseph, so he succeeded in everything he did as he served in the home of his Egyptian master. Potiphar noticed this and realized that the Lord was with Joseph, giving him access to everything he did, or success to everything he did.
This pleased Potiphar, so he soon made Joseph his personal attendant. He put him in charge of his entire household and everything he owned. From the day Joseph was put in charge of his master's house, Potiphar's household for Joseph's sake. All his household affairs ran smoothly, and his crops and livestock flourished. So Potiphar gave Joseph complete administrative responsibility over everything he owned. With Joseph there, he didn't worry about a thing, except what kind of food to eat. Joseph was a very handsome and well-built young man.
Okay, Sherry, you want to do the next 3?
And Potiphar's wife soon began to look at him lustfully. "Come and sleep with me," she demanded. But Joseph refused. "Look," he told her, "my master trusts me with everything in his entire household. No one here has more authority than I do. He has held back nothing from me except you, because you are his wife. How could I do such a wicked thing? It would be a great sin against God."
All right. Don and Elaine, you want to do the next 3 or the next 6?
She kept putting pressure on Joseph day after day, but he refused to sleep with her, and he kept out of her way as much as possible. One day, however, no one else was around when he went in to do his work. She came and grabbed him by his cloak, demanding, "Come on, sleep with me." Joseph tore himself away, but he left his cloak in her hand as he ran from the house.
When she saw that she was holding his cloak and he had fled, she called out to her servants. Soon all the men came running. "Look," she said, "my husband has brought this Hebrew slave here to make fools of us. He came into my room to rape me, but I screamed. When he heard me scream, he ran outside, got away, but he left his cloak behind with me."
Okay, Angelina, you want to read the next 3?
Okay. So she kept his garment with her until his master came home. Then she spoke to him with words like this, saying, "The Hebrew servant to whom you brought to us came in to me to mock me. So it happened, as I lifted my voice and cried out, that he left his garment with me and fled outside."
Okay, Hannah, the next 3?
When his master heard the story, his wife told him, saying, "This is how your slave treated me." He burned with anger. Joseph's master took him and put him in prison and placed in the place where the king's prisoners were confined. But while Joseph was there in prison, the Lord was with him, and he showed kindness and granted him favor in the eyes of the prison warden.
Go ahead and finish it.
So the warden put Joseph in charge of all those held in prison, and he was made responsible for all that was done there. The warden paid no attention to anything under Joseph's care, because the Lord was with Joseph and gave him success in whatever he did.
Okay. That's quite a story.
Yes, it is.
Is there anything that stands out in your mind?
Never trust an evil woman.
No,
No, stay away from those evil women.
You noticed he tried.
He
Mhm.
did.
He
He sure
did.
did.
Yeah,
What kind of a lesson is that for us?
well, I don't know how that was his job. He needed to be there.
But if you
Um,
notice what it said he tried to avoid her as
That's
much
right.
as possible.
Yeah,
It's possible.
I think he did everything I can imagine except run away.
Right. So what kind of a lesson is that for us, considering what Joseph tried to do?
Hmm.
Well, during all temptations, I guess we should try desperately to stay away from that temptation,
Yep,
especially if it's against the Lord.
right. Yep, that's a pretty good lesson.
Run away.
He didn't even really do anything wrong. It's just a lie that was told.
Right.
He did run away and he did everything I can imagine.
Hmm. So what do we
I
know
think
from this?
Potiphar,
Go ahead, Don.
I think Potiphar maybe recognized his loyalty,
Hmm.
and I guess he couldn't really go against his wife, but I think he did recognize that Joseph's loyalty in the beginning through his house was honorable.
Right.
And even though he had to put him in prison, he probably felt sorry. It doesn't say that, but
Well, it sounds like Joseph was there for quite a few years. So if it would have been anybody else who would have been accused of this, what do you think Potiphar would have done?
had him put to death.
I have a feeling
yeah,
that's true.
maybe
So I have a feeling
he
he,
maybe would have put him to death.
yeah, I don't think, and you can also imagine if Potiphar's wife was this way towards Joseph, do you think maybe she made
Probably others
before this
too.
to other men?
I would think so.
Yeah.
So somehow I don't think Potiphar believed his wife.
No,
He probably had a history of this.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think like
so he
Julia
probably
said, I think he would have been executed had he really believed his wife. He would have executed Joseph.
yeah, I
Which
think you're
brings,
right.
And also, also Potiphar was very kind to Joseph
yeah,
because he put him into prison, a place where the king's prisoner were confined. So that was very lenient of him to put him in the king's prisoner's place.
you're right. Yep. And I would imagine that he probably had a little talk with the warden saying, hey, this guy is very trustworthy. If you have anything for him to do that you need to be somebody who's honest, you could trust this guy. So I think, like Angelina said, there was a reason why he was put in this particular prison. It probably wasn't the most harshest prison.
Probably not. No.
Which brings to what do you think Joseph's character was like? As we read the beginning of this, what was he like?
I think he was a dedicated employee. He was honest.
Now, if this was any one of us, you're sold into slavery by your brothers, you're someplace you don't want to be. Now you're a servant of somebody who probably likely is not exactly friendly. What kind of an attitude would you come into this working situation?
Have a negative attitude.
Exactly. Probably.
Say that again.
Probably I will have a negative attitude if I was Seth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, you probably wouldn't be doing your work with a positive attitude. you'd probably be grumbling against God, grumbling against the Egyptians, grumbling against the slave traders, your brothers. Yeah, it probably wasn't the best of situations to come into. And yet, Joseph seemed to trust God. And like Julia said, he did his job the best he could. He probably learned pretty fast. And obviously, he was trustworthy. Because it said that what else did Potiphar recognize besides his skills?
Well, when he put him in charge of his entire household, um,
Everything he owned.
yeah, everything he owned, and the household affairs ran very smoothly, and his crops and livestock flourished. That in and that was with Joseph's um, managing. So you could see that Joseph was a good manager of whatever he did in his flocks, and
Right.
Well, the Lord was with Joseph.
and
Well,
Lord, yeah, the Lord was with Joseph
Well,
I'd
to
like to
accomplish
read
this.
verse 5.
Mm-hmm.
In verse 5, so it was from the time that he had made him overseer of his house and all that he had, that the Lord blessed the Egyptian's house for Joseph's sake. And the blessing of the Lord was on all that he had in the house and in the field.
Mm-hmm. And take a look at
Amen.
verse 3. Would somebody read that?
Potiphar
Potiphar.
noticed this and realized that the Lord was with Joseph, giving him success in everything he did.
So what did Potiphar notice?
The
Yeah.
Lord is with Joseph.
Realized the Lord was with him.
Now you wonder what Lord Potiphar was thinking of. Do you think that Joseph lived his faith day to day?
Oh, I think so.
Mhm.
Do you
So,
think perhaps he might?
yes,
Yeah. Do you think he might have even shared his faith a little bit?
Yep.
probably.
Must have.
So for Potiphar to say that he realized and recognized that the Lord was with Joseph, that's quite a recognition from a people who basically worship frogs and flies and all kinds of different gods. For him to recognize that
Right.
that that this was Joseph's God and that Joseph's God could control things like blessing him. That's quite a
Sure.
recognition.
Mhm.
So
Sure
you have,
is.
so you have to kind of wonder, what happened to Potiphar later? Was he a believer? Did the seeds that Joseph planted, affect how Potiphar led the rest of his life?
We don't know, do we?
No, there's no mention of him afterwards. So,
Yeah. Hopefully so.
well, and I have a feeling that, like I said before, I think as Angelina said, I think that the when he put him into prison, I have a feeling that he was told that he told the warden to treat Joseph special.
I do too.
Yeah. And so I think in some ways it was Potiphar's way of saying, I'm sorry, Joseph, I got to do this. I can't look weak in front of my men. I can't look weak in front of my wife. But I've got to do this, but I'll make sure that you'll be okay. That's pure speculation, but I just have a feeling.
Well, if
I think,
If-
I think there was such
Go ahead, Angelina.
I think there was such a big influence in the life of Potiphar by with the things that Joseph lived by while he was there, because when the family of Joseph came, Potiphar gave Potiphar gave the best of the land of Egypt, and that was Goshen. And I think that, to me, that shows that whatever the reason why probably Potiphar gave that land is because of the big influence that Joseph had in the life of Potiphar.
Mhm. Well, and we know that Joseph, we'll read later on, Joseph gave all the credit to God. He didn't take the credit for
Yeah.
himself.
Not at all.
Yeah, that God's the one that revealed these dreams to him. So, yeah, I think that there were a lot of miracles that were performed in front of Potiphar, in front of Pharaoh, that they recognized Joseph's God. So, they most definitely were willing to make sure Joseph was happy, including his family.
Amen.
So after Joseph is thrown in jail, what kind of character did he do there? Did he get angry? He's like, oh man, one more thing.
He didn't.
Yeah, behave there too.
Can you imagine all of these things happening to you and still remaining positive?
They're all.
That'd be hard.
It's amazing how after being accused and then put into prison, and then Joseph does good work around there too, and pretty soon the warden, he's on 22, it says before long the warden put Joseph in charge of all the prisoners and overthink everything he had in prison, and the warden had no more worries.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I might as well go home. Joseph the prisoner can take care of it. I'll go home.
Right. Yeah, it's amazing the trust that was put into Joseph by both Potiphar and the warden. So he definitely lived his faith out in the open. He didn't hide it.
No.
And he made sure that people knew that he was reflecting the character of his God.
Isn't that a blessing? That's what our character should show.
Exactly.
Of God in anything we do.
I think that's the big lesson in this chapter is
character.
Exactly. That we should be living our life, and I hope we do, that people recognize that we are blessed, that God has blessed us, and that we want to do our best for those around us, even if they're people that don't necessarily like us, or even we don't like them. If we do our best and we show the true character of Christ, I think that gets recognized.
We even showed our character at Culver's tonight.
But I'll bet they didn't put you in charge of the ice cream machine, though, did they?
They did mention that, but we said,
We had to get back to the prayer meeting.
we said we had to get back to the prayer meeting. Otherwise, I'll see you tomorrow.
Right.
About it.
Well, is there anything else? Did anybody see anything else to mention?
Oh.
Wonder how long Potiphar had his wife.
That's an interesting question. Yeah, I don't know.
How many times can she pull this off?
I often wondered what the guards thought. Like, oh, she's done it again.
Yeah, well. Oh my.
If Potiphar knew that his wife had done this before, and he didn't do anything, it would have been because back then the men were in charge of everything. He would have been like a laughing stock in front of his whole contingent of guards.
Exactly.
That's right.
He'd been made to look like a fool.
Right.
I think he had to do it just to protect himself.
Yeah, he really didn't have much of a choice, really. I mean, he could have, but as you said, Fred, the position that he was in, he didn't have a lot of choice. He couldn't let something like this go by without punishment of some sort.
No. And she had evidence, of his cloak, and
Will you notice who else she accused?
Um,
let's see. And then she took the story of the Hebrews.
Verse 14 and then again in verse 17.
The,
Well, she was blaming
servant.
Potiphar for bringing Joseph into the household.
Uh-huh.
Uh-huh.
Sound
Oh, yeah.
familiar? It was this snake that gave it to me. It was this wife that gave it to me. Now suddenly it's you who brought this Hebrew here.
Yeah,
It's the old blame game again.
Sure.
yeah.
Sure, and especially a Hebrew too.
Uh-huh. Yep.
The worst of the worst.
Right. So it was Potiphar's fault too.
That's right.
Anything else? All right. Well, if there's nothing else, we'll stop the recording and
Thank you for joining us at our prayer and Bible study session as we journey through the Bible one chapter at a time. We realize that you might have some questions or comments on the things that we discussed today. And if you do, please feel free to fill out the form below. Also, if you would like to have your own Bible, please fill out the form below and we will get back to you as soon as we possibly can. Thank you so much for joining us. We hope to see you next time at our prayer and Bible study session.